Outside the glass wall of the terminal, Lucas Carter's black Bentley sped away, disappearing in an instant without a trace of reluctance. I stood in the middle of the bustling departures hall like a forgotten statue. The colossal ceiling light stretched my shadow long and thin across the polished floor, only to have it casually shattered by the wheels of passing suitcases. We were supposed to be heading to the Caribbean to celebrate our third wedding anniversary. He had booked the flights, he had chosen the resort, and I had packed our luggage myself. Until half an hour ago, when he received a phone call. The woman's voice on the other end was soft and fragile, laced with just enough vulnerability to stir a man's heart. "Lucas, I have a fever. I feel terrible." It was Clara, the name he cherished in his heart, the one that got away who had never faded from his memory over the preceding years. Lucas's expression changed almost immediately. He hung up the phone and looked at me, his eyes a cold mix of impatience and indifference. "Clara's sick. I have to go take care of her." He said it with such a matter-of-fact air, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was as if I wasn't his wife, but merely an unimportant travel companion. I asked quietly, "What about our trip?" Though I already knew the answer. "You can go by yourself, or we can do it another time." With that, he pulled a faced-it black credit card from his wallet and pressed it into my hand. "Buy whatever you want. Just don't cause a scene." His tone was that of someone placating a child throwing a tantrum. I looked at him and suddenly found it all laughable. 3 years of marriage, and he still maintained that same condescending air. In his eyes, money could solve everything. It could soothe my hurt feelings, fill the void of his absence, and buy my compliance and silence. I didn't take the card. "Lucas, are you really going to abandon me here to go take care of another woman?" My voice was calm, so flat it was devoid of any ripple of emotion. Only I knew that the sea inside my heart had frozen over long ago. He frowned, a clear flicker of annoyance crossing his handsome face. "Vivian, don't make this difficult. Clara is all alone here, with no family. Her health has always been delicate. She's not like you. You have the Street Claire family behind you. You'd be perfectly fine even without me." He always said that. In his eyes, Clara was a fragile orchid, needing his constant care and protection. And I, the heiress of the Street Claire family, was like a fortress of steel, invulnerable, incapable of feeling pain, and in no need of compassion. But he had forgotten who it was that had willingly given up her family's shelter, who had set aside her pride to trade a career for a life as a homemaker, all for the sake of marrying him. Who it was that had retracted all her thorns to live obediently like a canary in the gilded cage of marriage. I looked him straight in the eye, my words clear and cold. "So what? Does that? I mean I deserve to be sacrificed, to be cast aside?" He was momentarily speechless, a rare flash of frustration in his eyes. He hated the feeling of losing control. "I don't want to argue with you." Tossing that line over his shoulder, he turned and walked away. His tall figure didn't hesitate for a second, as sharp and merciless as a blade, severing the calm and hesitate for a second. Last thread of illusion I had left. I watched him disappear behind the elevator doors, then looked down at the diamond ring on my fourth finger. 3 years ago, he had used this ring to buy 3 years of my devotion. But in those 3 years, what had I received in return? Endless days of waiting, the lonely side of the bed late at night, or just the scarce moments of tenderness he doled out when he felt a pang of pity. Slowly, I slid the ring off my finger. The platinum band was cold, just like our marriage, which had long become nothing more than a title. I walked over to a faction trash can, opened my hand, and let it drop. A faint metallic clink echoed as the priceless ring fell into the darkness, destined to be covered in filth. Goodbye, Lucas Carter. And goodbye to the Vivian Street Claire, who used to be the seventh one who once loved you enough to bury herself in the dust. I turned, pulled my NAWS suitcase, and walked in the opposite direction from him. This time, I wouldn't look back. I didn't board the flight to the Caribbean. In the airport's VIP lounge, I called Mr. Davies, my father's chief of staff. "Mr. Davies, it's Vivian." On the other end, he sounded a little surprised, but his voice remained as steady as ever. "Miss Street Claire, what a surprise. Is there anything you need for your trip with Mr. Carter?" My father, the chairman of the Street Claire Corporation, had never approved of our Marriage from the start. He believed Lucas was too ambitious and had little genuine affection for me. But I had been blinded by love, too stubborn to listen to anyone. He couldn't stop me, so he had to concede. From that day on, a distance grew between us. For 3 years, to avoid giving Lucas the impression that I was using my family to pressure him, I had barely initiated contact with them. Mr. Davies, the trip is cancelled. My voice was strangely calm. I need your help with a few things. Of course, Miss Street Claire. Please instruct me. First, book me the earliest first-class ticket to Milan. Second, on my behalf, draft a divorce agreement. I'll walk away with nothing, but Lucas Carter must sign it within 3 days. If he doesn't, the Street Claire Corporation will terminate all partnerships with Carter Industries. Third, my private apartment at the Regalia in Milan, have someone clean it. I'll be moving in tonight. Fourth, liquidate all the real estate, cars, and jewelry Lucas ever bought for me. Use the cash to establish a charitable foundation to support single mothers and abandoned children. I listed each item, clearly and without hesitation. The other end of the line was silent for a few seconds. Mr. Davies had been with my father for over a decade and had watched me grow up. He didn't ask for a reason, only replying in a deep voice, "Yes, Miss Street Claire. I will see to it immediately. Oh, and one more thing," I paused for a beat before continuing. "Get me a new SIM card. I'm getting rid of the old number." Understood. After hanging up, I popped the SIM card from its tray, snapped it in half with my fingers, and tossed it into the trash can at my feet. Along with the past I never wanted to look back on, it was gone for good. An hour later, Mr. Davies' assistant personally delivered a new plane ticket, a new phone, and the keys to my apartment. "Miss Street Claire, everything is ready." The young, efficient assistant bowed respectfully. Mr. Davies also asked me to pass on a message. "Chairman Street Claire has been waiting for you to come home." My eyes stung for a moment, but I quickly suppressed the emotion. "Please thank him for me, and thank my father as well." I took everything and boarded the flight to Milan. At 30,000 feet, the plane sliced through thick layers of clouds. I stared at the rolling sea of tea, white outside the window, my heart a vast, empty expanse. There was a time I thought Lucas was my entire world. For him, I gave up my career, my friends, and even pushed away my family. I was like a planet revolving around a single sun, eventually losing myself and my own light. Now that the sun had fallen, I finally understood. Without him, the sky didn't fall, and the earth didn't crack. I still had myself. I took out the sketchbook and pencil I always carried with me. I had graduated with a degree in jewelry design. My original dream was to become a top designer and build my own independent brand. But that dream had been shelved for far too long because of Lucas. It was time to pick it up again. The pencil glided swiftly across the paper. Soon, a uniquely shaped ring began to take form. It was no longer a circle symbolizing bondage, but the shape of a phoenix, wings spread wide, ready to soar after breaking free from its shackles. The tail feathers were stylized into a cascade of brilliant, dazzling gemstones. I named it Nirvana. The plane landed at Milan Malpensa Airport. As I set foot on foreign soil, I felt no trace of fear or confusion. This was the fashion capital of the world, and it was where my dream had once begun. "Welcome back, Vivian," I said to myself silently. My life in Milan fell into place faster than I could have imagined. The apartment at the Regalia was an 18th birthday gift from my father, located in the most vibrant part of the city center. From the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the magnificent Duomo di Milano in its entirety. Everything inside was decorated to my taste. Minimalist, bright, and steeped in artistry. Mr. Davies had already arranged for it to be cleaned perfectly. I just had to wheel my suitcase in. I locked myself in the apartment for 3 days, cutting off all contact with the outside world. I needed time to clear out the past before I could make an actual, proper new start. In those 3 days, I didn't cry, didn't throw a fit, and didn't show a single sliver of grief. My mind was as calm as a placid lake. Perhaps when disappointment accumulates to a certain point, all that remains is a profound numbness. I erased every trace Lucas had left behind. The clothes, bags, and shoes he had bought for me. I had the assistant gather them all for donation. The photos of us together on my phone, once my treasured possessions, were deleted without a factious single one left. I even rearranged the entire layout of the apartment, replacing the dark furniture and buying an abundance of greenery and fresh flowers. When sunlight streamed through the large windows, the entire space lit up, warm and inviting, just like my mood. On the fourth day, I changed into a sharp business suit and stepped out of the process apartment. I contacted Professor Andrio, my former mentor at the Polytechnic University of Milan. He was an internationally renowned master of jewelry design, and the first to recognize my talent. Years ago, he had tried his best to convince me to stay and build a career in Milan, but I was the one who turned my sow back on my future. When he received my call, Professor Andrio was both surprised and delighted. "Ah, my dear Vivian. Have you finally come to your senses?" His voice, thick with an Italian accent, boomed over the phone, both humorous and affectionate. "I've been telling you for years, you were born to be a jewelry designer. Going back, there was just a waste of your talent." I smiled, offering no lengthy explanation. "Professor, I want to establish my own design studio in Milan. I was hoping you could give me some advice." "Of course." He enthusiastically invited me to lunch. At an outdoor restaurant near the Piazza del Duomo, I met the professor, his hair now streaked with silver, but his spirit as sharp and vibrant as ever. He carefully examined the sketches I brought, his eyes lighting up with unconcealed admiration. "Vivian, your designs have matured so much in the past 3 years. They have life, they have soul, and most importantly, they have their own story." He paused at the sketch of the Phoenix ring, Nirvana. "This piece in particular, I see fragmentation, struggle, and a brilliant rebirth. This is no longer just jewelry. This is art." His affirmation was like a new breath of life for me. With his help, my studio quickly completed all the registration procedures. I named it St. Clair. The studio was located in the Brera district, Milan's most artistic neighborhood, home to countless galleries, antique shops, and prestigious independent brands. Everything was moving in the right direction. I was busy from dawn till dusk. From selecting the location and renovating the tasque space to hiring staff and conceptualizing designs, I was hands-on with everything. I felt like I was back in my college days, the girl who would do anything for her dream. The feeling of being busy yet fulfilled was more satisfying than anything I had ever known. I no longer thought about Lucas Carter. That man and our bland marriage had been completely excised from my life. A month later, St. Clair officially opened. On opening day, Professor Andrio came to congratulate me, bringing with him several prominent figures from the Maxidex industry. My debut collection, titled Nirvana, stunned everyone the moment it was displayed. Orders poured in like an avalanche. I knew I had succeeded. I stood in my light-filled studio, gazing out at the Milanese streets beyond the Tassaquastas window. And for the first time in a long time, I smiled a genuine smile that came from the bottom of my heart. It turned out that the sky I had built for myself was so vast and brilliant. And all of this was just the beginning. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, Lucas Carter was with Clara, enjoying what he thought was a world he had lost and found again. Amid a field of lavender in Provence, Clara wore a long white dress and a floral crown, her smile as gentle as a summer blossom. She leaned against Lucas's chest, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Lucas, thank you. Without you, I really don't know what I would have done." Lucas wrapped an arm around her waist, a faint smile on his lips. "Silly girl. There's no need for thanks between us." The day Clara had a high fever, he had indeed been frantic. He had rushed straight from the airport and taken her to the best private hospital. The doctor said it was just a common virus, exacerbated by emotional distress. He stayed by her bedside, watching over her through the night. The next day, Clara's fever broke, and her spirits improved. She held his hand, her eyes glistening with tears, and asked weakly, "Lucas, are you leaving? Do you have to go back to Vivienne?" Looking at her pale face and anxious eyes, his heart softened. "I'm not going. I'll stay with you." True to his word, he immediately cancelled all his plans and flew her directly to France. At the time, his thoughts were simple: a phone call to Vivienne and an NS. And a expensive gift would smooth things over. After all, she had always been so understanding. For 8 days, he stayed by Clara's side, reliving what he thought were their most beautiful, unfinished memories. They visited the Eiffel Tower, strolled along the Seine, and went to the Louvre. He thought he would feel happy, fulfilled, but for some reason, there was always a corner of his heart that felt empty. Especially late at night, a sense of hollowness and an unnameable irritation would creep in. Instinctively, he would reach for his phone, checking for missed calls or messages, but it was always silent. Vivian hadn't called him once, nor had she sent a single text. It was as if she had completely vanished from his world. He reassured himself that she was probably just angry. It was normal for women to sulk a little. When he returned, he would placate her with a few words, buy her the handbag she had been eyeing, and everything would go back to normal. In some corner of his mind, he had grown so accustomed to it, that he just assumed she would always be there, waiting for him. Clara seemed to notice his distraction. She became more cautious, but also more insecure. Over and over, she would ask, Lucas, do you love me? Did you only marry Vivian to appease your family? When will you divorce her and marry me? At first, Lucas had the patience to soothe her, but gradually, all he felt was weariness and frustration. He suddenly realized that the one that got away from his memories, once brought down from her pedestal and tainted by the braid realities of life, wasn't as perfect as he had imagined. Her petty insecurities, her suffocating need for control, her fragile exterior that was in fact a relentless pressure, it all started to suffocate him. He began to miss Vivian. He missed her independence, her reasonableness, and her sentient, calm demeanor. She had almost never bothered him with trivial matters. On the 8th day, the so-called romantic getaway ended with them sharing a bed, but dreaming different dreams. At the airport, Clara hugged him tightly, reluctant to let go. Lucas, when you get home, you have to talk to her about the divorce. I'll be waiting for you. Lucas just gave a noncommittal nod and called a taxi for her. Watching the car disappear, he let out a long breath, as if a heavy weight had been lifted. He started his car and drove toward his house, the suburban mansion that was his and Vivian's marital home. He hadn't been back in 8 days. He thought that by now, knowing Vivian's temperament, her anger must have subsided. Perhaps, like always, she had prepared a hot meal and a warm bath for him. All he had to do was be a little gentle, say a few soft words, and everything would return to its usual track. At that thought, he unconsciously sped up. It was the first time in a long while that he realized how much he missed that house. No, to be precise, he missed the Bursap house. Feeling of having Vivian waiting for him there, the black Bentley glided silently down the tree-lined street of the gated community. The sycamores along the road were beginning to turn yellow. Autumn was here. Lucas's mood mirrored the season, tinged with an unnameable desolation. He stopped the car at the curb instead of pulling into the garage, sitting quietly as he lit a cigarette. Through the hazy smoke, he looked at the familiar Sema mansion, but a strange sense of unfamiliarity washed over him. He had built this house himself. Every detail showcased his taste and financial prowess. Yet, he didn't know when, but it had become just a beautiful, empty shell. He thought of Vivian, the woman who was always quietly at home. She didn't like going out or noisy social gatherings. Her favorite thing was to stay in her small art studio, sketching one design after another. He used to scoff at her, calling her an out-of-touch debutante who didn't understand the world. But now, he realized it was a rare kind of peace, a tranquility many people yearned for, but could never have. And he had shattered it with his own hands. The cigarette quickly burned down to the filter. He stubbed it out in the ashtray and got out of the car. He didn't go to the front door, but habitually walked around to the backyard. He knew that at this time, Vivian was likely in the greenhouse. She loved tending to her flowers. He used to think it was a tedious and time-wasting hobby. But at this moment, he felt a flicker of anticipation, hoping to see her slender figure under the evening sun, quietly watering her plants as she always did. But the greenhouse door was locked. Through the glass, he could see the plants. Inside, some already wilting from lack of water. His heart skipped a beat, and a bad premonition crept up from the pit of his stomach. He quickly walked to the front door and opened it with his fingerprint. The foyer lights flickered on, and everything seemed just as he had left it. But the Air was tinged with a faint smell of dust, making the familiar house feel strangely cold. As he bent down to change his shoes, his gaze fell on something beside the shoe cabinet. A pair of pink bunny slippers lay there silently. They were Vivian's. He remembered clearly how much she loved them, saying they were soft and cute. For some reason, just looking at those slippers filled him with an indescribable panic, as if their owner would never return to wear them again. He suppressed the rising anxiety and called out, "Vivian?" No one answered. The mansion was so quiet he could hear his own heartbeat. He called out again, his voice unconsciously softer. "I'm home." Still no reply. Lucas frowned, loosening his tie as he walked upstairs. Was she not home? Had she gone back to her parents? The thought brought a small sense of relief. It was good if she was with her parents. They could talk some sense into her, which was better than her giving him the cold shoulder. He pushed open the master bedroom door. The room was immaculately tidy, the curtains drawn, casting it in a cool, dim light. He strode over and pulled the curtains apart. The sunset flooded in, illuminating every corner and also highlighting the wedding ring, sitting alone on the vanity. The ring that was supposed to be on Vivian's finger. Lucas's pupils contracted violently. He rushed over and picked it up. The cold metal sent a chill through his palm, sharp as a needle piercing his heart. Underneath the ring was a neatly folded piece of paper. His fingertips trembled slightly as he unfolded it. It was a standard form divorce agreement. In the space for the wife's signature was Vivian Street Claire's elegant, flowing script. Those 3 words were so glaring he could hardly look at them. Walk away with nothing. She wanted nothing. Not his money, not his house, not his cars. All she wanted was a divorce. Lucas's mind went blank. He couldn't believe his eyes. How could this be? Vivian loved him so much. How could she be the one to ask for a divorce, and to leave with nothing? No, this had to be a new trick, a way to force his hand. Yes, that must be it. Just then, an older woman's raspy voice called up from downstairs. "Sir, is that you?" It was Mrs. Gable, the housekeeper. Lucas, like a drowning man clutching at a tep-tack straw, grabbed the agreement and rushed downstairs. Mrs. Gable was just coming in with a basket of groceries. She froze for a second when she saw him, then her face lit up. "Sir, you're finally back." Lucas strode over and grabbed her arm, his voice hoarse with urgency. "Where is she? Where is Vivian?" Mrs. Gable winced in pain, her joyful expression turning to alarm. "Sir, please, you're hurting me." Only then did Lucas realize his loss of composure. He let go, but his eyes remained fixed on her. "Tell me, where did she go?" Mrs. Gable rubbed her arm, looking at him with a troubled expression. "Sir, I really don't know." "You don't know?" Lucas's voice rose, laced with anger and panic. "You're here every day, and you're telling me you don't know where she went?" The housekeeper flinched, her eyes turning red. "Sir, you really can't blame me for this." She began to recount everything that had happened over the past 8 days, her voice growing more hesitant. "8 days ago, you and the missus left together. I thought you were going on a trip. But the very next day, her assistant came and took all her clothes, bags, and jewelry. I asked him what was going on, and he just said he was following her instructions. I tried calling her, but her phone was off. After a few more tries, the number was disconnected. I had no other choice but to call you, sir, but you never answered." As she spoke, Mrs. Gable grew more distressed, and tears finally fell. I thought you two were just having a fight, and she had gone to her parents for a while." Every word she said made the blood in Lucas's veins run colder. An assistant packing up all her belongings, a disconnected phone number. This wasn't the behavior of someone who was just angry and staying with her parents for a few days. This was a well-planned departure. Lucas suddenly remembered the calm, cold look in Vivian's eyes at the airport. It turned out that in that very moment, she had already made her decision. And he had been foolish enough to think she was just sulking, just acting out like all the times before. A terrifying sense of dread, like a vine, wrapped itself tightly around his heart, making it hard to breathe. He asked in a hoarse voice, a voice that was afraid of the answer. "So she hasn't been back at all in these 8 days?" Mrs. Gable shook her head, tears streaming down her face. No, sir. The missus never came back. I couldn't reach her. I asked her friends, and they all said they didn't know. Sir, for days now, no one has been able to contact her. Everyone has lost touch with her. That last sentence hit Lucas like a hammer. He staggered back a step, his back hitting the sofa. A wave of helplessness and terror engulfed him. For the first time, he realized that the woman he had always assumed would be waiting for him had truly disappeared. And he didn't even know where to begin looking for her. He stood in the middle of the empty living room, his gaze fixed on the pink bunny slippers still lying by the entrance. The void in his heart, the one he had always willfully ignored, now expanded infinitely, the pain so intense, he could barely breathe. Lucas went into a frenzy, trying to find her. The first thing he did was call Vivian's number, the one he knew by heart. We're sorry, the number you have dialed is no longer in service. The cold, automated female voice was a cruel announcement of her disappearance. He stubbornly called dozens of times, but the result was always the same. Finally, he threw his phone onto the sofa, pacing the living room, forcing himself to think clearly. Vivian wasn't Clara, she wasn't the type of woman to use a disappearance to gain sympathy, or to hold on to him. If she had gone this far, she had surely covered all her tracks. Lucas picked up his spare phone and began searching his contacts. He found the numbers of a few of Vivian's friends and called them one by one. Hello, is this Miss Chen? This is Lucas Carter. Mr. Carter, what can I do for you? The voice on the other end was polite, but cold, with a hint of suspicion. Is Vivian with you? I can't reach her. Vivian? I haven't been in touch with her for a while. She didn't tell me where she was going. I see. Sorry to bother you. 3 or 4 calls yielded the same answer. They either said they didn't know, or that they hadn't spoken to her in a long time. The dismissive tone in their voices made one thing clear to Lucas. They were all lying. They knew where Vivian was, they just weren't telling him. They were all on her side, helping her stay away from him. That realization left Lucas feeling a profound sense of powerlessness for the profound cause. First time. He was completely ignorant of Vivian's world. After 3 years of marriage, he didn't even know who her best friend was. He had always used busy as an excuse to be absent from her social life. He had seen her afternoon teas, shopping trips, and get-togethers as trivial and meaningless. Only now did he realize the price of his indifference. He had been thoroughly cut out of her life. His last hope was the Street Clare family. He took a deep breath and dialed the number for the Street Clare estate. The phone rang for a long time before someone answered. Hello, who is this? The voice of Franklin, the Street Clare's longtime head of household, was as calm as ever, but beneath that calm was an unshakable dignity. Franklin, it's Lucas. Ah, Mr. Carter. His tone was neutral. What can I do for you? Franklin, is Vivian home? I can't reach her, and I'm really worried. Lucas tried to make his voice sound as sincere as possible. There was a pause on the other end. Miss Street Clare is not here. Then where did she go? Franklin, you must know, don't you? Lucas's voice was laced with desperation. Mr. Carter, this is a matter between you and Miss Street Clare. It's not my place to interfere. The answer was perfectly crafted, leaving no room for argument. Then, Franklin added slowly. But there is one thing I think I should tell you. Please. When you and Miss Street Clare were married, Chairman Street Clare made it very clear. A daughter of the Street Clare family is precious. She is not to be casually trampled upon or molded to someone else's will. If the day ever came when she was wronged and no longer wished to continue the marriage, the Street Clare family would always be her sanctuary. It seems that day has finally come. With that, Franklin hung up. Listening to the cold dial tone, Lucas's hands and feet grew numb. Franklin's words were crystal clear. The Street Clares knew where Vivian was, and they supported her decision, including the divorce. Lucas slumped onto the sofa, running his hands through his hair. He felt like an insect caught in a spider's web. The more he struggled, the tighter it became. He couldn't understand how things had come to this. It was just an argument, wasn't it? Just a cancelled trip. Did she have to be so ruthless? He looked down at the 5-crumpled divorce agreement. The 4 words, walk away with nothing, felt like a slap to his pride. Suddenly, he clenched the paper and tore it to shreds, throwing them on the floor. He would not get divorced. Absolutely not. Vivian was his wife. She had married him, she was his in life and in death. He refused to believe she could hide from him forever. In the days that followed, Lucas nearly lost his mind, mobilizing every connection and resource he had to find Vivian. He hired private investigators, checked her travel and spending history, and even her call records. But the results were utterly disappointing. Every trail went cold the moment she stepped into the airport 8 days ago. It was as if a person named Vivian Street Clare had ceased to exist. Her bank cards showed no new transactions, and her passport had no record of entry into any country. She had vanished into thin air, leaving no trace for him to follow. Lucas knew the Street Clare family had to be behind this. Only they had the power to erase a person's information so thoroughly. He had tried to go to the Street Clare Corporation to see her father, but he couldn't even get past the front desk. The receptionist, with a professional smile, always gave the same reply. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, you don't have an appointment." His calls were met with the same refrain from the chairman's secretary. "I'm sorry, Mr. Carter, Chairman. Street Clare is in a meeting." For the first time in his life, Lucas tasted true helplessness. It was suffocating. Meanwhile, Clara's calls kept coming. "Lucas, what's wrong? Why haven't you been answering my calls? How did it go with Vivian? Did she agree to the divorce? Lucas, I miss you. When are you coming to stay with me?" At first, Lucas managed to give her a few perfunctory answers, but soon, just hearing her voice filled him with an unbearable irritation. His mind was consumed with Vivian. He had no energy to placate another woman. "I'm busy. Don't call me again." He snapped impatiently, hung up, and blocked her number. Only then did he truly understand what it meant to reap what you sow. If it weren't for Clara, he wouldn't have abandoned Vivian at the airport. If he hadn't pushed her away, step by step, she wouldn't have disappeared from his world so completely. But what good was regret now? Unable to find Vivian, Lucas's life spiraled out of control. He developed insomnia, staring at the ceiling night after night. Whenever he closed his eyes, Vivian's cold, resolute face would appear before him. He started drinking, hoping to numb himself. But the more he drank, the more cruelly sober his mind became. The little things he had once overlooked, the details he had forgotten, when he was with Vivian, now surfaced with painful clarity. He remembered that she didn't actually like spicy food. She had only forced herself to get used to it to cater to his taste. He remembered his stomach wasn't good, so for years, she had made him different kinds of soups and broths, never missing a day. He remembered that whenever he went on a business trip, his suitcase was always perfectly packed, from his clothes and ties down to the smallest razor. He also remembered that no matter how late he came home from entertaining clients, a light was always left on for him in the living room, and a glass of warm milk was always waiting on the table. He had always taken these things for granted. She was his wife, after all. It was only now that he realized nothing was ever a given. It was love. A love so deep, it was self-effacing, a tenderness she had quietly woven into the fabric of their lives. And he had trampled all over it. That night, Lucas got drunk again and staggered into the empty mansion. The vast house was dark, devoid of light, warmth, or life. He didn't turn on the lights, stumbling up the stairs and into the master bedroom. Moonlight streamed through the undrawn curtains, casting a silent glow. He saw Vivian's vanity, everything still, as she had left it. He walked over and pulled open a drawer. Inside were her cosmetics and skincare products, brands he couldn't even name. Lucas froze. In 3 years of marriage, he had never once seriously bought her a skincare set. The things he bought for Clara were always the most luxurious, top-tier brands. But for Vivian, it was always just a cold, impersonal black card. He had always assumed she wanted for nothing. He had also assumed nothing bothered her. Now he realized it wasn't that she didn't care. It was that she was too considerate. So considerate that he had taken her needs, her feelings, and her grievances for granted. In the back of the drawer, he saw a locked wooden box. He found the key and opened it. Inside wasn't the jewelry he expected, but a thick stack of yellowed letters and a small voice recorder. Lucas picked up the letters. The first page had Vivian's elegant handwriting. To my Lucas. My Lucas. What an intimate way to address him. He couldn't remember the last time he had heard her call him that. His fingers trembled as he opened the first letter, dated just after they were married. Lucas, today is our first day as husband and wife. I'm so happy. I finally married the man I've loved for 10 years. I know you don't love me, and this marriage is just a compromise with your family for you. But that's okay. I believe that if I try hard enough, if I'm good enough, one day you will see me. I will spend my life warming your heart. A weight crushed Lucas's chest. He never knew that from the very beginning, she knew he didn't love her. He had always thought he had hidden it so well. He read the second letter, written on their first anniversary. Lucas, today is our first anniversary. You forgot. That's okay, as long as I remember. I prepared a candlelight dinner for you and waited all night, but you didn't come home. I later found out you went to a midnight movie with Clara. Lucas, my heart hurts so much, like it's being pricked by needles. But I can't cry or make a scene, because I know you hate women who cause trouble. So I can only write this down, admitting to myself how much it truly hurt. Lucas's eyes began to burn. He remembered. That day was their anniversary. He had been at the office when Clara called, saying she had just broken up with someone and was devastated, asking him to see a movie with her. He had hesitated for only a moment before going. He had forgotten what day it was, and he had forgotten the woman waiting for him all night at home. He turned to the next letter. Each one was like a blade, slowly, deliberately cutting into his heart. Lucas, today is your birthday. I made the Black Forest cake you love, but you still didn't come home. I called you, but Clara answered. She said you were celebrating with her. It turns out you two share the same birthday. How ironic. Lucas, I'm pregnant. I really want to tell you, but I'm scared. I'm afraid you won't want this baby, because I know you've never truly wanted a child with me. Lucas's breathing stopped. A child? They had a child? Why did he have no memory of this? He frantically flipped to the next letter and found the answer. Lucas, the baby is gone. I was careless and fell down the stairs. The doctor said it might be very difficult for me to get pregnant again. Maybe it's for the pregnant. Best. There will be nothing to burden you anymore. But Lucas, I couldn't bear to lose our child. It was so small, it never even got to see the world. The paper was stained with the dried, mottled traces of tears. Something exploded in Lucas's mind. He remembered. It was the summer of their second year of marriage. He was on a business trip in a neighboring city with Clara for a blast project. Mrs. Gable had called, saying Vivian had fallen down the stairs, was bleeding heavily, and had been taken to the hospital. His heart had clenched. He had been about to go back immediately. But just then, Clara had grabbed his arm, saying she was sick from the climate, vomiting, and needed to go to the Presence hospital. Looking at her pale face, he had softened. He just called his assistant and told him to handle things at the hospital. He thought it was just a minor injury. How could he have known that what he had missed was his own first child? His only child with Vivian. And he hadn't even gone to the hospital to see her once. He was the monster. What had he done? Regret and pain washed over him like a tidal wave, completely drowning his reason. Lucas finally broke down, sobbing like a man who had been lost for too long, and had only just realized what he had lost. He didn't know how long he cried. When his tears ran dry and his throat was raw, he finally stopped. Then he picked up the small voice recorder from the box and pressed play. Vivian's voice, clear but weary, filled the room. It was a recording of her therapy session. Doctor, I think there's something wrong with me. I can't sleep, I have no appetite, and I'm not interested in anything anymore. Life feels so tiring, so meaningless. I smile every day, but I'm not happy at all. I think I might have depression. The doctor's gentle voice replied, Miss Street Claire, can you be more specific? What is causing you so much pain? Lucas heard Vivian's voice tremble, ever so slightly, but with a pain that cut to the bone. It's my husband. He doesn't love me. He has another woman in his heart, her name is Clara. They were childhood sweethearts, each other's first love. I feel like I'm just the laughable third wheel who came between them. I tried so hard to be good to him, to make him see me, to make him love me. But I realized I was wrong. If there's no love, there's no love. Nothing I do can change that. He can go to the movies with her on our anniversary. He can celebrate his birthday with her. He can abandon me when I had a miscarriage, when I needed him most, all because of a phone call from her. Doctor, don't you think I'm pathetic? Isn't it all just a joke? Her voice trailed off, replaced by quiet, suppressed sobs. The crying wasn't loud, but each sound was like a dull knife twisting in Lucas's heart. He never knew that behind her calm exterior lay so much pain and despair. He never knew. She was already covered in wounds, one push away from shattering completely. Depression. Those 3 words were like mountains crashing down on him, crushing the air from his lungs. He had always thought she was just introverted and quiet. He never imagined she was so sick. And he, the husband who should have been closest to her, was completely oblivious. No, not oblivious. He was the one who had pushed her into that abyss, step by step. The recording continued. Doctor, there were times I thought I could just endure it for the rest of my life. But I couldn't accept it. I loved him for 10 years. I didn't want to give up so easily. I kept waiting for him to turn around, to see my sincerity. But I don't think I can wait any longer. A few days ago, he left me alone at the airport for her again. You know, doctor? In that moment, I suddenly saw everything clearly. Why suffer over someone who doesn't love you? Why throw myself into a fire for a love that was doomed from the tapetus start? No one dies just because someone else leaves them. I've made my decision. Letting him go is also letting myself go. The recording ended there. Lucas felt all his strength drain away, and he collapsed onto the floor. It was only then that he understood. It's never the last straw that breaks a person's back. It's the countless straws that pile up, day after day. Being abandoned at the airport was never the only reason. It was just the final spark that ignited all the humiliation, hurt, disappointment, and despair she had silently swallowed for 3 years. He finally understood why Vivian's departure was so absolute. Because her heart had died long ago. It had died in the endless waiting, in the relentless disappointments, and with their unborn child. Lucas squeezed his eyes shut in agony. He had thought all he had lost was a wife who no longer loved him. Now he knew he had lost the woman who once saw him as her entire world. He had single-handedly destroyed the old Vivian, the one who had devoted herself to him completely. And there would never be another one like her. Overwhelmed by regret and panic, Lucas lost all reason. He began searching for Vivian at any cost, like a madman. He threw money at the world's top private investigation firms. He mobilized Carter Industries' entire overseas network. He even stood outside the Street Claire estate from dawn till dusk, begging for a chance to see her father. But no matter how he struggled, he couldn't find a single clue. She was like a drop of morning dew, vanished completely at sunrise, leaving no trace. Time passed. A month, 2 months, then half a year. Lucas's frantic energy slowly faded into a prolonged state of despair and depression. He stopped going to the office, handing over all responsibilities to his VP. He locked himself in the empty mansion, with only alcohol for company. He lost a significant amount of weight, his eyes became sunken, and his face was covered in stubble. He no longer resembled the dashing, arrogant, and brilliant CEO he once was. He listened to the voice recording over and over again. He read the letters until he had them memorized. Each time, his heart was torn to shreds anew. He started to remember every little detail of when Vivian was with him. The taste of her cooking, the faint scent of gardenia on her skin, the way her eyes sparkled like stars whenever she looked at him. He started to tend to the flowers in the greenhouse. He started to cook the dishes she once liked. He even left a light on every night, as if waiting for someone who would never return. He was turning into her shadow. He thought that by doing so, he could alleviate some of the guilt, but he found that it only made the pain worse. Every action was a reminder of the precious treasure he once held and how foolishly he had lost it. One day, his cousin and assistant, Dylan, couldn't bear it any longer and dragged him out of the mansion. "Lucas, you can't go on like this. Dylan's eyes were red as he yelled. Are you going to destroy yourself and drag Carter Industries down with you, all for a woman who doesn't even love you anymore? Lucas didn't respond, sitting limply as Dylan hauled him into a car. I'm taking you somewhere. For a change of scenery. Dylan drove him to a newly opened art exhibition. Lucas had never been interested in such things. He let Dylan pull him from one gallery to the next, like a soulless corpse, until he stopped in front of one particular exhibit. A massive poster hung outside, featuring a jewelry collection called Nirvana. The image of a phoenix spreading its wings, adorned with dazzling gemstones, made his heart tremble. A strange sense of familiarity washed over him. As if guided by an unseen force, he slowly walked inside. The gallery was packed. People crowded around the display cases, their murmurs of awe filling the air. It's breathtaking. This design is a masterpiece. I heard the designer is an incredibly talented Chinese-American artist named Vivian. What a unique name. Lucas pushed through the crowd, making his way to the front. The moment he saw the phoenix ring inside the case, his pupils contracted. He recognized that design. He had seen a nearly identical sketch in Vivian's notebook. At the time, he had scoffed at it, calling it gaudy and impractical, saying no one would ever like it. But now, the very design he had dismissed was being displayed as a work of art, admired and praised by countless people. And on the designer's profile, next to the display case, he finally saw the face that haunted his days and nights. In the photo, Vivian was wearing a tailored white suit, her long hair pulled back in a neat bun, revealing an elegant face and a calm, confident smile. Her eyes were bright, sharp, and full of strength. She was no longer the quiet woman who used to follow him, looking up at him with all her heart. Beside the photo was a short bio. Vivian Street Claire, internationally acclaimed emerging jewelry designer, founder of St. Claire studio in Milan. So, she had never vanished. She had just chosen a different way to live. On the other side of the world, she was shining brightly, in her own way. And he was left behind at the starting point, forever unable to catch up. Looking at the radiant woman in the photograph, Lucas suddenly started to laugh. He laughed and laughed, letting tears stream down his face. He had finally found her. And at the same time, he understood with absolute certainty that he had truly lost her. The exhibition's resounding success quickly made Vivian Street Claire and her brand, St. Claire, famous worldwide. Orders flooded in from all corners of the St. globe, including from top luxury brands and royal families. Vivian became the daily, most sought-after new face in the fashion world. Her name appeared on the covers, two of international fashion magazines and newspapers. She became an idol and an idol session. Inspiration for countless women who admired her talent, her independence, and her courage to rise from the ashes. And all of this, Lucas could only witness through cold magazine pages and distant screens. He became obsessed, frantically collecting every piece of numbers information about her. He followed all her social media accounts, bought every magazine she was featured in, and even sent people to Milan to buy her designs at exorbitant prices. He had her studio address, her apartment address, and her prom address. Work schedule investigated down to the last detail. Countless times, he booked a flight to Milan, wanting to throw caution to the processors wind and go find her. But every time, just before leaving, he would hesitate. What right did he have to appear before her? As her ex-husband? As a sinner? He was afraid of the coldness in her eyes, but he was even more terrified of seeing another man by her side, a man better than him, who knew how to cherish her. So, he remained trapped in his own turmoil, wanting to see her but not daring to, wanting to get closer but lacking the courage to take a single step. One night, he got drunk again. Fortified by alcohol, he finally dialed the des international number he had long memorized, but never dared to call. The phone rang for a long time, so long that just as he was about to hang up, someone answered. A familiar, clear, and calm female voice came through. "Hello, who is this?" It was Vivian. After half a year apart, just that short sentence was enough to make Lucas's heart ache. He opened his mouth, but his throat felt constricted. For a long moment, all that came out were a few hoarse, meaningless sounds. The other end was silent for a moment, then she said his name. Lucas Carter. She still recognized his voice. That small detail ignited a foolish, fragile spark of hope in his heart. "Vivian, it's me." His voice trembled with emotion. How have you been?" Silence again. The pause was so long that Lucas thought she had hung up. Finally, she replied flatly, "I'm very well." Her voice was as placid as a placid winter lake, devoid of any emotion. "Is there a reason you're calling?" The formal distance in her tone was like a bucket of cold water, extinguishing the hope that had just flickered to life. I. Lucas stammered, unable to find the right words. Should he apologize? Beg her to come back? It felt like any words were too late, too meaningless. In the end, all his thoughts coalesced into one simple, pathetic sentence. "Vivian, I was wrong." His voice was raw. I know I treated you terribly. I was a bastard. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But can you give me one more chance? Can we start over?" His voice was heavy, with a plea that humbled him to the dust. It was the first time in his life he had ever begged anyone for anything. A soft, almost inaudible laugh came from the other end. It was a laugh laced with both mockery and pity. "Lucas Carter, have you forgotten? We're divorced. My life now is very good, and I'm very happy. I don't need, and I certainly don't want, to have anything to do with you anymore. A chance? I gave you two. Many of those. You just never knew how to cherish them. As for starting over..." She paused, then enunciated each word clearly. "Lucas Carter, listen carefully. The path I, Vivian Street Claire, have walked, I will never walk again. And a man I have stopped loving, I will never love again. Especially not a man like you." With that, she hung up. Listening to the cold, final dial tone, Lucas felt as if all the blood had been drained from his body. He sank to the floor, letting the icy despair swallow him whole. It was only then that he truly understood. Some mistakes, once made, can never be undone. And some people, once lost, are lost for a lifetime. After that phone call, Lucas fell into a deep depression. But he stopped drinking and wallowing. Instead, he threw himself into his work, burying himself in the office day and night. He wanted to numb himself, to fill the vast emptiness in his heart with meetings, contracts, and data. Under this frenetic work pace, the company's profits soared, breaking one record after another. To the outside world, Lucas Carter was back, the decisive, ruthless business prodigy he had always been. Only he knew he was just a shell, propped up by sheer willpower. He stopped following any news about Vivian. Not because he didn't want to, but because he didn't dare. He was afraid he would lose control and intrude upon her peaceful life. He was even more afraid of doing something that would make her despise him even more. Perhaps the last shred of dignity he could afford their seven of past was to let her go and quietly exit her world. Then, he dealt with his lingering relationship with Clara. He asked her to meet at a coffee shop. Clara arrived, beautifully dressed and overjoyed, thinking he had finally come to his senses and wanted to rekindle their old flame. "Lucas, you finally agreed to see me. I've missed you so much." She habitually reached for his arm, but he subtly moved away. "Sit down. We need to talk." His expression was calm, almost chillingly so. He took a checkbook and a file from his briefcase and pushed them across the table. $5 million, as compensation for the past few years. And these are the deeds to a luxury condo downtown. I've already transferred it to your name. From now on, we don't need to see each other again. The smile on Clara's face froze. She stared at him in disbelief. "Lucas, what are you saying? Are you breaking up with me?" Lucas replied flatly, his voice as cold as if he were closing a business deal. "There was never a was to break up. Clara, we're not kids anymore. Let's stop living in a fantasy. I wronged you in the past, but I wronged Vivian more. I don't want to be indebted to anyone anymore." Tears streamed down Clara's face. "It's because of Vivian, isn't it?" Her voice was almost out of control. "She doesn't want you anymore. Why can't you let her go? What do I lack that she has?" Lucas looked at her tear-streaked face, but he felt nothing. He used to dread seeing her cry. Her tears had always been his weakness. But now, all he felt was tired. He looked at her, his voice devoid of warmth. "You can't compare to her. In any way. With that, he stood up to leave. In my heart, no one has ever compared to her. Lucas! Clara shrieked, jumping up to grab him. You can't do this to me. You promised you would marry me. Lucas didn't turn back, simply shrugging her hand off. That was just your own delusion. He strode out of the coffee shop without a second glance. He knew that this messy entanglement that had lasted for half his life had finally ended. But the disentanglement price of his belated awakening was far too high. After settling things with Clara, Lucas felt a great weight lift from his shoulders. Though the void in his heart remained, he started to learn how to live a life without Vivian. He poured all his energy into his work, expanding the company internationally, constantly flying between countries. He thought that by keeping himself busy, he would have no time to think of her. He traveled to many cities, Paris, London, New York, Tokyo. Every time he arrived in a new place, he would habitually visit the most famous jewelry stores. He wanted to see if any other jewelry in the world could move him more than Vivian's designs. But the answer was always disappointment. The magnificent jewels in the display cases were just cold, beautiful, but soulless stones. Their beauty was too shallow, too standard, too generic. Compared to Vivian's work, which was always brimming with life and soul, they fell far short. Gradually, Lucas understood. It wasn't that the other jewelry wasn't beautiful. It was that in his eyes, in his heart, there was only room for one person and her creations. One day, he flew to Milan for a business project. It was his first time in the city where Vivian had once lived, where she had rebuilt her life. Walking through the historic streets, watching the elegant passers-by, and the timeless architecture, he felt a strange illusion, as if just a few more steps would lead him to her familiar figure in a corner cafe. As if guided by an invisible force, he took a taxi to the Brera district. There, he found the studio named St. Clair. The storefront wasn't large, but it was exquisitely designed. Through the large glass window, he could see the bright, warm, and elegant interior. He didn't go in, just stood across the street like an ordinary passerby. He saw a woman with a figure very similar to Vivian's, talking to a client inside. She was smiling brightly, so radiantly that the whole room seemed to light up. Sunlight streamed through the glass, casting a gentle golden halo around her. In that moment, Lucas's heart ached fiercely. He wished so much that the woman was her, but he knew it wasn't. Because Vivian was no longer in Milan. A month ago, she had returned to the States. Not only that, but she had also opened her first domestic branch in New York City. He had read the news in a Financial City magazine, which had dedicated its cover story to the genius designer's copper story, triumphant return. Looking at her confident, radiant face on the cover, his heart was a mess of emotions. A little relief, a little pride, but mostly a lingering sense of loss and sorrow. She was back in the very city where they had spent their married years. But she hadn't told him. The thought of letting him know had probably never even crossed her mind. It turned out that this was how completely they were over. Vivian's return to the US sent shockwaves through the fashion and business worlds. Her flagship store in NYC was located in the city's most prestigious shopping district. On opening day, it was packed with VIPs and celebrities, a grand spectacle that no one could ignore. Not only were there prominent figures from fashion and media, but also heavyweights from the business world, people who usually only appeared in financial news. Even the chairman of the St. Clair Corporation, Harrison St. Clair, was there to support his daughter. In front of a wall of cameras, he announced that the St. Clair Corporation was officially entering the jewelry industry. We will be investing $10 billion to fully support the St. Clair brand's domestic and global expansion. My daughter, Vivian St. Clair, will be the CEO of the new St. Clair Jewelry Group. The announcement was like a bombshell, shaking the entire business community. No one had expected that the St. Clair heiress was not only a brilliant talent but also had a powerful financial empire backing her. This was no longer just a papaless designer opening a store. This was a princess of industry, arriving with an ebony army, ready to rewrite the rules of the game. Overnight, Vivian's name was on everyone's lips in New York's high society. Everyone was curious about the heiress who had it all: beauty, talent, and family background. The St. Clair estate was soon besieged by eligible bachelors. But all of this had nothing to do with Lucas Carter anymore. He read the news in the morning's financial paper. The front page featured a from R. Large photo of Vivian and her father. She was wearing a perfectly tailored pantsuit, her hair falling to her shoulders, her makeup exquisite. Standing next to her father, she smiled radiantly, her eyes vibrant and captivating. Her confident, composed demeanor made Lucas feel a painful sense of distance. It was only then that he realized he had probably never truly known her. He had always thought she was a weak woman who needed him to survive. He never imagined that, once she shed the title of Mrs. Carter, she could shine so brilliantly. She was like a diamond that had been covered in dust for too long. Now that the dust was gone, all that remained was her own light, so bright that no one could ever overshadow it again. The light was so dazzling it pierced his heart, making him feel unworthy of even looking up at her. Lucas crumpled the newspaper and threw it in the trash. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Cancel all my appointments for the next month. I'm going to New York on business." He didn't even know why he was so insistent on going. Perhaps he just wanted to be a little closer to her. Even if it was just to live under the same sky, to breathe the same air in a city where she existed. That would be enough. His trip to New York was anything but smooth. Seeing Vivian was now harder than reaching for the stars. He waited outside her company building from morning till night, but never even caught a glimpse of her. The flowers and gifts he sent were all returned unopened. He tried to arrange a dinner through mutual acquaintances, but the answer was always the same. "She's not available." Only then did Lucas truly realize that an unbridgeable chasm had opened between them. She was now the Street Claire heiress, the CEO of Street Claire Jewelry, the most sought-after woman in New York. And he was just her ex-husband, a part of her life she wanted to forget, the one person she wanted to avoid most. That evening, Lucas attended a high-profile charity gala. He had never cared for such events, but he went because he heard Vivian would be there. The gala was held at the city's most luxurious 7-star hotel. The grand ballroom glittered with crystal chandeliers, filled with elegant gowns and the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. Lucas had no mind for socializing, his eyes were fixed on the entrance, waiting for the woman who consumed his thoughts. Finally, half an hour into the event, she appeared. She walked in on her father's arm, drawing the attention of everyone in the room. She wore a black, strapless evening gown, its sharp, fitted cut accentuating her elegant and the Tepper one's alluring figure. Around her neck was a necklace made of countless tiny, exquisite diamonds that sparkled dazzlingly under the lights. Lucas recognized it immediately. It was the centerpiece of her Nirvana collection. Vivian's arrival instantly made her the center of attention. All eyes were on her, a mix of awe, admiration, and a hint of envy. But she seemed accustomed to it, a polite, distant smile gracing her lips. She moved through the room with her father, greeting acquaintances with a graceful and poised demeanor. Every gesture, every glance, exuded a natural nobility and calm. Lucas stood in a corner, watching her, mesmerized. In that moment, he felt as if they were living in two different worlds. She stood in the spotlight, as radiant and unattainable as the moon, while he was just a speck of dust in the crowd. He yearned to run to her, to hold her, to tell her how much he missed her, how much he regretted everything. But he no longer had the right. He could only watch as one man after another approached her. They were all younger, more distinguished, more charming than he was. They struck up conversations, trying to win her favor, their intentions to pursue her clear. And what hurt Lucas the most was that Vivian didn't coldly refuse them as he had hoped. She politely returned their toasts, smiled, and engaged in conversation with a perfect, harmonious grace. The scene was beautiful, but to Lucas, it was like 1,000 tiny blades stabbing at his heart. The highlight of the evening was the charity auction. Vivian, as the most prominent jewelry designer of the moment, had donated a pair of sapphire cufflinks named Twin Wings. The starting bid was $100,000. The moment the auctioneer finished, paddles shot up. 110,000. 130. 300,000. The price escalated rapidly. Everyone knew they weren't just bidding on cufflinks. They were bidding for a chance to connect with the Street Claire family, and more importantly, with Vivian herself. Lucas slowly raised his paddle. 500,000. The number silenced the room. All eyes turned to the man in the shadowed corner. Even the auctioneer was stunned for a moment. 500,000. Do I hear? Any higher? No one immediately raised a paddle. After all, $500,000 for a pair of cufflinks was insane. Just as the auctioneer was about to bring the gavel down, a clear male voice called out from the front row. 600,000. Everyone turned to look. The bidder was Ethan Cole, the heir to the Titan Corporation. Ethan was known as New York's most eligible bachelor, young, talented, with an impeccable family background. He was the most prominent of Vivian's suitors. After raising his paddle, he even turned to smile at her, a confident look of victory on his face. Vivian simply gave a slight, polite nod. In return, her expression unreadable. Lucas's face darkened. He gritted his teeth and raised his paddle again. $1 million. The room erupted in whispers. It was clear now that this was no longer an auction. It was a silent battle between two men, with Vivian St. Clair at its center. Ethan was clearly not expecting a spoiler. He frowned, glancing at Lucas with a look of annoyance. He was about to raise his paddle again when Vivian, sitting next to him, gently stopped him with a look. She gave a subtle shake of her head, a gesture so small, it was almost imperceptible. Then, she stood up, took a microphone, and walked onto the stage. She stood next to the auctioneer and smiled at the audience. Thank you all for your appreciation of my work. And a special thank you to this gentleman for his recognition of my design. As she spoke, her eyes met Lucas's. It was the first time their gazes had truly connected all night. Amid the crowd, the lights, and the chatter, their eyes locked. Lucas saw it clearly. There was no surprise in her eyes, no emotion, and certainly not the flicker of hope he had foolishly been waiting for. There was only a profound stillness, as calm as an ancient well, and a faint, polite distance that clearly defined the boundary between them. She paused, then continued in a clear, composed voice. I have always believed that art is priceless, but charity should be within one's means. A price of 500,000 for these cufflinks has already exceeded their material value. I do not wish for a good deed to be distorted for any personal reasons. Therefore, I am announcing that the bidding for these cufflinks will end here. They will go to Mr. Carter, who bid $500,000. She had misspoken, saying his final bid was half of what it was, a subtle, but clear dismissal of his extravagant gesture. She gave him another polite nod, perfectly courteous and detached, before turning and walking off the stage. Her actions were flawless, calm, and decisive, leaving no room for ambiguity. In just a few sentences, she had saved Ethan's face and completely shut Lucas down. More importantly, she had made it clear to everyone present that she had no ambiguous relationship with either of them. Lucas sat frozen, his hand still clutching the paddle with the PPI $1 million number. In that moment, he felt like a complete joke, a fool, who thought his mere presence could make her look back. But the truth was, in Vivian's eyes, he was no longer worth a second thought. The gala ended, but Lucas didn't leave. He waited in the hotel's parking garage. He knew Vivian had to pass through here. He had so much he wanted to say to her. He wanted to ask her why she wouldn't accept his apology. He wanted to ask if there was truly no hope left for them. Late into the night, he finally saw her. She was with her father. Their driver was already waiting. Vivian, get in the car. It's cold out here, Harrison St. Clair said, draping his coat over her shoulders. You go ahead, Dad. I see a friend. I'll just say a quick hello, Vivian replied, then walked straight toward Lucas. The sound of her high heels echoed on the concrete floor. She stopped in front of him. Mr. Carter, still here so late? Were you waiting for me? Her tone was as distant and professional as ever. Lucas looked at her exquisite face, so close, and was momentarily stunned. Vivian. He finally managed to force the word out. He had so much to say, but the words were stuck in his throat. If you're going to thank me for the cufflinks, don't bother, Vivian cut him off. I only did it because I didn't want my work to become a tool for showing off. It had nothing to do with you. Her every word was a sharp dagger, piercing his heart, shattering his last illusion. Vivian, I know I did a lot of terrible things in the past, Lucas's voice was hoarse with pain. I know you won't believe anything I say now, but I truly regret it. Can you not be so cruel? At least, don't treat me like a complete stranger." Vivian looked at him silently for a long time, so long that Lucas thought she might have softened. But then, she smiled faintly, a smile filled with indescribable sorrow and mockery. "Lucas Carter, do you think that just because you regret it, just because you say you're sorry, all the pain I suffered will magically disappear? Do you think that if you just turn around, I'm supposed to be standing here, waiting for you, with gratitude? What gives you the right?" Her voice was not loud, but every word was firm and final. "Was it abandoning me at the airport? Or was it being with another woman while I was having a miscarriage? Lucas Carter, remember this. In this world, not every apology can be met with an, 'It's okay.' The only reason I'm even standing here, talking to you right now, is not because I have any illusions about you. It's because I wanted to tell you this myself." She took a deep breath and looked him straight in the eye. "From the moment I took off that ring and walked out of that airport, there has been no place for you in my life. Not in the past, not now, and there never will be in the future." With those final, merciless words, Vivian turned and walked away without another sad glance. Her heels clicked on the polished floor, each sound like a hammer blow to Lucas's heart. He watched her resolute back disappear into the night. He wanted to chase after her, to pull her back, to beg her not to go. But his feet felt like they were cast in lead. He knew her words were the truth. It was truly over between them. Completely and utterly. That night, Lucas didn't know how he got back to his hotel. He only remembered that the New York night was cold, a cold that seeped into his bones. From then on, he stopped trying to interfere in Vivian's life. He just watched her from afar, watched her company grow, her brand become a global phenomenon, and watched her climb to the pinnacle of her career. She became a queen he could only look up to. And he, in turn, worked to become better. He stopped drinking, stopped letting himself go. He poured all his energy into his work. He started doing charity, paying attention to the social issues he had once ignored. He thought that maybe, if he became good enough, he might earn the right to stand before her again, even if only as a friend. 2 years later, Carter Industries and the Street Claire Group had a joint venture overseas. The project teams from both sides needed to go to Europe for a 2-week site visit. Lucas, as the CEO of Carter Industries, personally led his team. And the person in charge for the Street Claire Group was none other than Vivian. When he saw her in the VIP lounge at the airport, Lucas felt like he was dreaming. 2 years had made her even more beautiful, more captivating. Time had left no mark on her face, only gracing her with more poise and calm. She wore an elegant cream-colored pantsuit, her hair loosely tied back, looking both professional and chic. She was sitting on a sofa, engrossed in a document. The sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating her profile, outlining its perfect curve. Lucas stood a short distance away, watching her, enchanted. He thought that all his efforts to become better over the past 2 years were for this very moment to be able to stand by her side once more, even if only as a business partner. Vivian seemed to sense his gaze and looked up. Their eyes met. Lucas saw a flicker of surprise in her eyes, but it was quickly replaced by her usual composure. She gave him a polite nod, then returned to her document, as if he were just an insignificant passerby. The 2-week trip to Europe was both bliss and torture for Lucas. It was bliss because he got to see her every day. He saw her speak fluently and confidently in meetings, negotiate with clients with ease, and sit quietly reading a book during their downtime. Every smile, every glance, every gesture was etched into his memory. But it was torture because she always maintained a safe distance from him. At work, she was professional and impeccable. But outside of work, she was guarded. She was never alone with him and never discussed anything other than business. It was as if an invisible wall stood between them. He could see her, hear her, but he could never touch her. On the last stop of their trip, in Provence, France, they coincidentally stayed at the same resort where he had taken Clara 2 years ago. Returning to the same place brought a flood of conflicting emotions. He remembered how distracted he had been then, half-heartedly dealing with the woman beside him while taking for Granted the silent sacrifices of his wife far away. How could he have been such a bastard? That evening, their local partners hosted a grand bonfire party. Everyone drank and had a great time. Lucas didn't drink, he just sat in a corner, watching Vivian, who was smiling brightly in the crowd. She wore a floral dress, and the 79 firelight flickered on her face, making her look softer and more beautiful than usual. She held her colleagues' hands, dancing around the fire, her clear laughter ringing out like silver bells. Lucas watched, mesmerized. How long had it been since he had seen her laugh so freely? It seemed that after they got married, she had never laughed like that again. What a failure he had been as a husband. The party ended, and everyone returned to their rooms. Vivian seemed to have had a little too much to drink, her steps a bit unsteady. Her assistant tried to help her, but she laughingly waved him away. I'm fine. I just want to take a walk. She then walked alone toward the lavender field behind the resort. Lucas, worried, quietly followed her, keeping a safe distance so she wouldn't notice him. The lavender field under the night sky was a dreamlike sea of purple, the air filled with its gentle fragrance. Vivian took off her heels and walked barefoot on the soft earth. She spread her arms, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath, an expression of pure bliss on her face. Lucas stood there, quietly watching her. He felt his heart fill with a soft, warm feeling. He thought he could stand there and watch her like this for a lifetime. Just then, Vivian's phone rang. She took it out, and a gentle smile spread across her face, a smile Lucas had never seen before, a happiness that came from the depths of her soul. She answered, her voice sweet and coquettish. Hello? Are you done with work? Yes, I'm still out with some colleagues. I didn't drink that much, just a little. You're so fussy, I told you I'm fine. Okay, I'm coming back now. Love you, Mua. The sweet smile still lingered on her lips as she hummed a little tune and turned to head back. But as she turned, she saw Lucas standing frozen a short distance away. The smile on her face instantly vanished. Their eyes met, and the air seemed to solidify. The sweet smile was still there, a mixture of awkwardness and cold mockery. Lucas's heart was squeezed by an invisible hand, the pain so sharp he could hardly breathe. He heard a strange, dry voice that he barely recognized as his own. Was that Ethan Cole? Other than the Titan Corporation heir, who had been relentlessly pursuing her, he couldn't think of anyone else who could make her smile like that. Vivian paused for a second, then, as if she had just heard the most ridiculous thing, she burst out laughing. She shook her head as she laughed. Lucas Carter, do you think too highly of yourself? Or have you always thought too little of me? Do you think that after leaving you, I must find another wealthy heir, someone just like you, to survive? Lucas was speechless. He didn't understand what she meant. Vivian's laughter subsided, her expression returning to its usual calm indifference. That was my assistant. He was worried because I had a little too much to drink, and was urging me to go back and rest. She paused, looking him straight in the eye, her words clear and decisive. And that last thing I said was just a joke between colleagues. After all, you know my priorities. Her lips curved into a smile that held the regal confidence of a queen looking down on the world. Men are everywhere. They can't compare to a career. Lucas looked at her, his throat tight, unable to say a word. He knew she was lying. That soft tone, that gentle look, that coquettish love you at the end, it couldn't have been just a joke. She had someone. She was in love. She just didn't want him to know. Or rather, she felt it was unnecessary for him to know, because he no longer had the right to be a part of her private life. That realization was like a poisoned dagger to his heart, twisting deep inside. It hurt more than her rejection at the charity gala. It was more hopeless than when she had told him there was no longer a place for him in her life. It was only then that he truly understood that there was no possibility left for them. No matter how hard he tried, how much he regretted, how much he wanted to make amends, he could never go back. He had lost her forever. From the moment he had abandoned her at the airport, he had eternally lost the woman who once saw him as her entire world. I understand. It took all his strength for Lucas to force those two words out. His voice was hoarse, distorted beyond recognition. He looked at her and managed A smile that was uglier than crying. I wish you happiness. With that, he turned and walked away, his every step heavy, as if dragging his body and soul. He didn't look back, afraid that if he did, he would completely fall apart. Vivian stood still, watching his lonely, desolate figure disappear into the Pratus night. Her face showed no emotion. Only when he was completely gone did she slowly turn back to the endless lavender field. The night wind swept past, gently tousling her hair and drying the single, transparent tear that had gathered at the corner of her eye. Goodbye, Lucas Carter. This is where our story ends. From now on, we walk our separate paths. May you find your joy, and I, my peace. Part 2. Another story. My husband, Kevin, suddenly announced he had sold our house. For $800,000. The closing is tomorrow. I had just found out I was pregnant. My hand was still clutching the positive test result, my mind went blank. The closing for what? The house, he said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. My brother Ryan has a $300,000 gambling debt. I had to help him. He said he wants to open a shop with the other $500,000. I already promised him. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. You sold our house to pay off your brother's gambling debt and give him money to start a business? He saw nothing wrong with it. So where is our baby supposed to live when it's born? Without a second thought, he replied, we'll rent. We can always save up and buy another house later. Seeing how devoted he was to his brother, I found the situation chillingly absurd. When we first got married, he promised to treat me well for the rest of our lives. But after the wedding, almost his entire paycheck went to his parents. I never complained. I endured it. When I got pregnant and had stomach pains, I wanted to take a day off to see a doctor. He stopped me without hesitation. Is that really necessary? Do you know how much pay you lose for one day off? Don't forget we still have a mortgage. I endured the pain and continued working overtime to make our mortgage payments. And now, he could casually sell our home to pay for his brother's gambling and business venture. I smiled and nodded slightly. Fine. Sell it. But before you sign anything, let's get a divorce. Kevin froze. What did you say? He looked at me as if he couldn't believe his ears. I looked him straight in the eye and repeated, word for word, I said, before you sign anything, let's get a divorce. His expression shifted from shock to anger. Are you crazy? That's my brother. He's in debt, and they're threatening to break his fingers. If I don't help him, who will? Besides, I made the down payment, and the house is in my name. I can sell it if I want to. Looking at his self-righteousness, I suddenly felt like the man in front of me was a complete stranger. After 3 years of marriage, I was finally seeing him for who he truly was. I nodded calmly. Yes, your brother is your brother. What about me and the child? In my belly? He was speechless. I continued, my voice low, but every word clear. On our wedding day, you knelt before my parents and promised to be good to me for life. You said what was yours was mine, and what was mine was yours. But what happened after we got married? Every month, you sent half your salary to your mother and another $2,000 to your brother. Did I ever say anything? I got pregnant, had stomach pains. And you told me it was too expensive to see a doctor and made me work overtime to pay the mortgage. I endured that too. My eyes burned, but I refused to let the tears fall. And now? You sold the house we live in for $800,000 to pay off your brother's gambling debts and fund his shop. Did you ever discuss it with me? Did you even ask for my opinion? Did you forget? The house may be in your name, but we paid the mortgage together, and I paid for all the renovations. The anger on his face faltered for a moment, but then his stubbornness returned. How can you compare the two? My brother's life is on the line. They'll break his fingers if he doesn't pay. We sold the house, so what? We can rent. We'll save up and buy another one later. Stop being so materialistic. I looked at him, a bitter laugh escaping my lips. I'm materialistic? When I married you, what did you have? Your parents borrowed money for the down payment, and we paid it back together. I paid for the renovations. We both paid the mortgage every month. I was in pain, and you wouldn't let me see a doctor, making me work overtime. I endured all of that, and in the end, you sell our town, sis. House for your brother and call me materialistic. I looked him straight in the brother. My voice cold and clear. Kevin Miller, you should ask yourself who the bastard, real heartless one is. He was at a loss for words. Just then, his mother called. He answered on speakerphone. Kevin, did the money come through? Her frantic voice crackled. The loan sharks are at the door. If you don't hurry, they're really going to hurt Ryan. Kevin lowered his voice. It's here, Mom. Don't panic. I already transferred this all. 300,000 to Ryan. Tell him to pay them off. I'll transfer this other 500,000 for his shop tomorrow. His mother started crying with relief. That's wonderful. This time, he can finally turn his life around. Kevin, you've always been the sensible one. Your wife didn't make a fuss, did she? Kevin looked down, his voice placating. No, Mom. Sarah is very understanding. His mother was silent for a few seconds before saying, her voice filled with her own brand of logic. Good. Women are easy to handle with a few nice words. So, what if you lost the house? You can always rent. Your brother's future is what's important. If he messes up again, this whole family is finished. Kevin said nothing. I smiled and spoke directly into the phone. Don't worry, Mom. Your younger son is taken care of. But your older son's family is about to fall apart. His mother froze. What do you mean by that? I gave a cold, dismissive laugh. I mean your older son's wife doesn't want him anymore. With that, I hung up. I looked at the man in front of me and said calmly, go ahead, transfer the money to your brother. Give him the whole 500,000. After that, I'll see you at the courthouse. Don't look for me, and don't beg. I placed a hand on my stomach, my voice soft but firm. This child, I'll raise it myself. Then, I turned and walked into the bedroom. The moment the door closed, my tears finally fell. I sat on the bed for a long time before opening my phone and finding the Miller family group chat. I hesitated for a moment, then typed a message. To all my aunts and uncles, as of today, Kevin and I are getting a divorce. From now on, we will go our separate ways. Just letting everyone know. After sending it, I left the group and deleted all of Kevin's relatives from my FIS contacts. It was a clean break. I tossed the phone on the bed. A moment later, it rang an unknown number. It was Kevin's aunt. Sarah? What's going on? Your mother-in-law just called me, saying you announced a divorce in the group chat. Kevin is such a good, honest man. Why would you want to divorce him? I replied calmly, Auntie, he sold our house for $800,000. 300,000 to pay off gambling debts, and 500,000 for his brother's shop. His parents made the down payment, but I paid for the renovations, and we paid the mortgage together. I'm pregnant and was having stomach pains, but he wouldn't let me see a doctor and made me work overtime. Now the house is gone, and my child and I have nowhere to live. Tell me, is a marriage like that worth saving? The other end was silent for a few seconds. Well, they are brothers. It's normal for an older brother to help his younger brother. Normal? I laughed coldly. Auntie, if you were pregnant, and your husband sold your house to pay for his brother's gambling, would you have agreed? She was speechless. I continued, my voice still gentle, but leaving no room for argument. Auntie, please don't try to persuade me. I've made up my mind. If he wants to be a slave to his brother, that's his business. But I won't let my child be born without a proper home. I hung up and blocked her number. Another aunt called. Sarah, let me just say a few words. Auntie, you don't have to. Let me say it for you, I interrupted, my voice surprisingly calm. You're going to say Kevin is a good man, that I shouldn't be hasty, and that I should think of the child, right? You're going to say that we can always earn money for another house, but a marriage, once broken, is gone forever, so I should think carefully, right? She was silent. I laughed, a humorless sound. Auntie, I have thought carefully. I've endured for 3 years. His salary going to his mother, I endured. Him supporting his brother, I endured. Being pregnant and in pain, denied a doctor's visit and forced to work overtime, I endured. Now he's sold our home, and you want me to endure more? Tell me, when will it ever be enough? Sarah, I know you're hurt, but divorce is a big deal. I know it's a big deal, I replied, my words sharp and clear. That's why I've thought it through. I hung up and put my phone on silent. When I walked out, I ran into Kevin. He looked startled. Where are you going? I looked him in the eye. Home. What home? My mother's home. I walked past him and out the door. He called after me, Sarah, don't be rash. We can talk about this. I didn't look back. When I got to my parents' house, it was already dark. My mother was surprised. See me? What are you doing here so late? Have you eaten? I didn't say anything, just walked in and sat on the sofa. My father came out of his room, took one look at me, and asked, "What's wrong?" I looked up, my voice soft. "Dad, Mom, I want a divorce." The apron in my mother's hands fell to the floor. A divorce? Why, all of a sudden? I told them everything. He sold the house for $800,000 to pay for his brother's gambling and new shop. I paid for the renovations, and we paid the mortgage together. I'm pregnant and was in pain, but he wouldn't let me see a doctor and made me work overtime. Now we have nowhere to live. I recounted the story calmly, as if it were about someone else. When I finished, my mother's eyes were red. That bastard. You're pregnant, and he made you work overtime? He wouldn't even let you go to the hospital? My father was silent for a long time. Then he went to the kitchen and came back with a glass of water. Here, drink this. I took a sip. He looked at me, his voice steady. Have you thought it through? I have. And the baby? I looked down, my fingers tightening around the glass. I want to terminate the pregnancy. My mother burst into tears. Sarah, that's a life. My throat ached, but I kept my voice steady. I know, Mom. But if I have it, where will we live? In a rental? What do I tell it when it grows up and asks why? Other kids have a home and we don't? My mother was speechless. My father was silent for another moment before saying, slowly, okay. What do you mean, okay? My mother cried. That's our grandchild. My father looked at her. Then what do you suggest? Let her have the child and be tied for life to a man who sells his house for his brother? So, that every time she looks back, she remembers being pregnant and in pain, working overtime to pay off her in-laws' debts? My mother fell silent. My father turned back to me. Daughter, Dad will take you. Tears streamed down my face. My father waved his hand dismissively. Enough talk. Let's eat. Your mother bought some nice groceries today. I'll make your favorite roast chicken and mashed potatoes. I watched my father's back as he walked into the kitchen. The familiar sound of the knife hitting the cutting board echoed, just like when I was a child. Whenever I came home upset, he never asked too many questions. He would just quietly cook my favorite meal, let me eat my fill, and find my own peace. After filing for divorce, I waited at my parents' house. During that time, Kevin's family used the money to open the shop for Ryan. They even deliberately posted pictures of the grand opening in the family group chat. Red banners, congratulatory flower baskets, and firecrackers covering the ground. Ryan stood in front of the shop, beaming, with his mother's arm around him, her face full of pride. The photos were clearly meant for me to see. Soon after, Kevin's aunt forwarded them to me with a message. Sarah, your in-laws are just angry right now. Your mother-in-law asked me to tell you to come back and apologize to Kevin. Once they've calmed down, you two can save up for a new house. You're married, and you have a child on the way. You shouldn't make such a big fuss. I knew these were my mother-in-law's words, spoken through her sister. She wanted me to be the one to back down. I smiled and replied calmly, Auntie, I terminated the pregnancy. The other end was stunned. You? What did you say? I terminated it. The procedure was yesterday. The divorce papers have been sent. I've also hired a lawyer to divide our assets. That $800,000 includes my money for the renovations and my share of the mortgage payments. My lawyer said, I will get back what is legally mine. The aunt was speechless for a long time. I continued, my voice still light, but my words like ice. Please pass a message to my mother-in-law for me. They can open their shop, post their pictures, I'm not jealous. But that money includes my blood, sweat, and tears. Whatever the court awards me, I will take back. They can do whatever they want with the rest. I hung up, blocked her number, and went to pack my bags. My mother stood at the door. Are you really sure? Yes. Is everything packed? Yes. Just then, my father came in with a bag of oranges. Take these for the road. I took the bag, my throat tight. Dad, Mom, I'm leaving. My mother's eyes were red. Call us when you get there. I will. My father just patted my shoulder. I pulled my suitcase out the door. The ride share was already waiting. As the car pulled away, I looked back and saw my parents still standing at the gate, watching me go. I turned away and leaned my head against the seat. The city I had lived in for 30 years slowly receded, and a sense of calm settled over me. Just then, my phone rang shrilly, shattering the silence. It was Kevin. The moment I answered, he screamed, "Sarah Collins, did you freeze my family's bank account? Are you insane? That's my brother's shop money. Who do you think you are? Do you know he can't pay his suppliers? They're at the shop, demanding their money." I said nothing. He was panting, his voice getting louder. "Do you have to push my brother into a corner to be happy? He finally had a chance to start over, and you do this to him. You were never like this before. Why are you so vicious now?" Vicious? I leaned back, watching the scenery fly by, feeling surprisingly calm. "Kevin, don't call me that. I'm telling you, unfreeze the account right now. That's my family's money. It has nothing to do with you." "Nothing to do with me?" I repeated softly. "Yes. The house was in my name, my family paid the down payment. What does the prepaya money have to do with you? That little bit you spent on renovations, I'll pay you back later. Do you have to drag us through court over this? Do you know my mother's blood pressure is through the roof because of this?" I closed my eyes. "Kevin, let me ask you one thing. Stop stalling and unfreeze the account. You said you'd pay me back for the renovations. Do you even remember how much that little bit was?" He hesitated. 280,000. "And the down payment? Your family borrowed money for it, but after we got married, I was the one who helped you pay it back. We paid the mortgage together. The house was in your name, but the financial burden was never yours alone." I paused, my voice growing clearer. "I paid for the renovations myself. We paid the mortgage together. But when you sold the house, did you ask me? When you gave the money to your brother, did you ever think about where our child would live?" He was silent for a moment, but then he retorted stubbornly, "It's not the same. My brother's life was on the line. He was in debt. How can you be so petty at a presetta time like this? Have you no humanity?" "Humanity?" I laughed, a cold, empty sound. "Kevin, your brother's life is a pure sound life, but my child's life wasn't? When I was in pain and you wouldn't let me see a doctor, forcing me to work overtime, did you have any humanity? When you sold our house and left me and my baby to figure out how to rent a room, did you have any humanity? How can you compare them? My brother was gambling." I cut him off, my voice sharp and cold. "He wasn't sick, he wasn't in an accident, it wasn't some unavoidable disaster. He chose to gamble. And you sold our home to fill his bottomless pit. Kevin, can you really not tell the difference between saving someone and enabling them?" The line went silent, except for his heavy breathing. Finally, he said through gritted teeth, "Sarah Collins, I'm asking you one last time. Are you going to unfreeze the account or not?" "No." His voice turned icy. "Then don't regret it." He hung up. I looked at my trembling hand. Not out of fear, but because I was only now realizing that in 3 years, I had never truly seen the man I married. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror. "Where to, miss?" "The airport, please." Sunlight streamed through the window. I closed my eyes, remembering Kevin's last words. "Don't regret it." Regret what? That I stopped enduring the pain, stopped working myself to the bone to pay for his family's debts? That I didn't let my child be born into a life of renting and instability? Or that I didn't just hand over the hundreds of thousands of dollars I had earned to his brother? I didn't know which regret he was talking about. All I knew was that the best decision I ever made was in that moment, holding the pregnancy test, when I chose to walk away. As the plane took off, I leaned my head against the window, watching the city shrink below. 3 years ago, on my wedding day, my mother cried as she sent me off, telling me to be a good wife and not be so headstrong. 3 years later, When I left, she cried again, but this time she said, "Daughter, if you're tired, come home. Mom will take care of you." It was only then that I understood the difference between being a mother and being a daughter. The plane broke through the clouds, and sunlight flooded the cabin. I closed my eyes, determined not to think about Kevin anymore. Some things, once broken, can never be fixed. When the plane landed, it was late afternoon. I pulled my NPA suitcase out of the airport. The southern wind, warm and humid, brushed against my face. It was my first time in this city. No friends, no relatives, no one knew who I was. It was perfect. I rented a short-term apartment in an old neighborhood. The landlady was a cheerful woman in her 50s. She showed me the room, then looked at me closely. "Honey, have you been crying?" I froze. She waved her hand. "It's okay, I won't ask. You just make yourself at home. If you need anything, I live right downstairs." After she left, I stood alone in the small room. The furniture was old, but clean. Outside the window was an ancient banyan tree, its aerial roots hanging down like a curtain. I stood there for a long time before I started to unpack. 3 years ago, I had done the same thing. Kevin had brought me to our new, empty apartment and said, "Sarah, this will be our home." And I had replied, "Yes." I spent 3 months renovating it, choosing every tile, every light, every curtain myself. Every payday, I would transfer almost all my money to him for the mortgage. When I got pregnant and was in pain, he had said, "Is that really necessary? Do you know how much pay you lose?" So I endured. And now? There was nothing left. My phone lit up with messages. My mother asking if I had arrived safely. My lawyer informing me that the other side wanted to negotiate. I replied briefly, "No negotiations. Proceed as planned." Then, a text from an unknown number, "Sarah, this is Kevin's mother. Come back. We can talk this out. The baby you're carrying is my grandchild. If you get rid of it, you'll pay for it for the rest of your life." I stared at the message for 2 seconds before deleting it and blocking the dot number. Soon, another text. "Sister-in-law, it's Ryan. I never thought things I would turn out like this. I'm not opening the shop. I'll give the money back. Please come home." I read it but didn't reply. The shop was already open, the money already spent. Even if he wanted to return it, would his mother and brother let him? And even if they did, what did it have to do with me anymore? The child was gone. It was too late for these words. The days passed quickly. I found an administrative job at a small company. The pay wasn't high, but it was enough. I worked 9 to 6, took the subway, ate in the cafeteria, and cooked for myself at night. On weekends, I went to the retail supermarket or stayed home and read. My life was as simple as a glass of water. But strangely, I felt at peace. No one was asking me to save money for someone else's debt. No one was telling me to be understanding, to compromise, to sacrifice. No one was forcing me to live for a family that had never considered me one of them. It was just me. The money I earned was mine to spend. The food I cooked was mine to eat. I could sleep and wake whenever I wanted. After 3 years of suffocation, I could finally breathe. One night, I remembered Kevin's words. "So what if we rent? We can always save up and buy another house later." Save up? I smiled to myself. Was I saving up for my own life or to fill the bottomless pit of his family? I no longer cared. All I knew was that for the rest of my life, I would never live like that again. And that was enough. A month later, the case went to court. I flew back for the hearing. Kevin was there. He was thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. When he saw me, his eyes lit up with a final glimmer of hope. But I just looked away. Ryan was there, too, sitting in the audience, his head bowed, not daring to look at me. My mother-in-law didn't come. My lawyer said she was at home, throwing a fit, calling me a homewrecker. I just listened in silence. In court, my lawyer presented the evidence. The sales contract for the house, the receipts for the renovations, the mortgage payment history, the bank transfers to his brother, the pregnancy test, and my timesheets showing the overtime I worked while in pain. Kevin kept his head down the entire time. His lawyer talked a lot, but it was all the same old story, husband and wife should Be understanding, it was reasonable for him to help his brother, and I couldn't claim he had mishandled joint assets. The judge interrupted. I just have one question. When the defendant sold the house, did he consult with the plaintiff? The lawyer faltered. Well, yes or no? No. The courtroom was silent. When the verdict was announced, Kevin looked up at me. His eyes red. Sarah. I stood up and walked out without a word. I heard hurried footsteps behind me. Sarah, wait. I stopped, but didn't turn around. He stood behind me, his voice trembling. Did you really get rid of the baby? I remained silent. He took another step closer, his voice cracking. Sarah, I know, I was wrong. I was confused. My mom kept telling me my brother was about to lose his fingers, that our family would be ruined. I just panicked. Can you give me another chance? I'll change, I promise. I won't give him another dime. I'll work hard and buy you a new house. I turned to face him. His face was streaked with tears. It was the first time I had ever seen him cry. But strangely, I felt no hatred, no resentment. Just a profound, bone-deep weariness. Kevin. He looked at me eagerly. Yes? I looked him straight in the eye. Do you know what the only thing I thought about was? When I was on that operating table? He froze. I continued. I thought, if this child is born, and one day it asks, you, Dad, why do other people have their own homes, but we don't? What would you say? He opened his mouth, but couldn't speak. I smirked, my voice calm but sharp. You'd say, so what if we rent? You'd say, we'll save up and buy one later. You'd say, Dad had no choice, it was your uncle. But I don't want my child to have to hear those words. And I certainly don't want it to grow up to be another version of you. The color drained from his face. I said nothing more and turned to leave. As I stepped out of the courthouse, the harsh sunlight made me squint. Just then, a voice called out behind me. Sister-in-law. I turned. It was Ryan. He ran up to me, out of breath, wringing his hands. Sister-in-law, can I talk to you for a minute? I didn't answer. He looked down, his voice barely a whisper. Sister-in-law, I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have gambled. I was just bored, and some friends, it just happened. My mom always said I was the golden boy who needed to uphold the family name, that my brother already had a family and a house, and I had nothing. I got desperate. The more I lost, the more I wanted to win it back. I looked at him, a young man in his early 20s, still with a hint of immaturity on his face. But this was the young man whose foolishness had destroyed the home I had worked so hard to build. I was suddenly reminded of Kevin in the early days of our marriage. He was that age then, too. He had also promised to work hard and give me a good life. And what was the result? Money, future, marriage all thrown into the bottomless pit standing before me. I spoke, my voice flat. Your brother is very good to you. He looked up, startled. From the time you were little, he's always given you the best of everything. You get into gambling debt, he pays it off. You cost him his house, he doesn't bat an eye. Do you know what you are to him? Ryan was silent. I looked him straight in the eye. He's raising you like a son. His face went pale. Sister-in-law. But unfortunately, you're his brother, not his son. I cut him off, my voice still calm but unyielding. A brother's job is to teach his younger brother how to stand on his own 2 feet, not to clean up his messes for the rest of his life, sacrificing his own wife and child to do it. The most damaging thing to do you isn't the gambling. It's that someone is always there to bear the consequences for you, making you think you can keep making mistakes and always have a way out. He stood there, stunned. I walked past him. But after a few steps, there was a loud thud behind me. I turned. Ryan was kneeling on the ground. Sister-in-law, he begged, his voice trembling. I'm sorry. I really know I was wrong. I swear I'll never gamble again. Passersby started to stare. I stood there, looking at him for a long time before speaking. Get up. He didn't move. I gave a cold laugh. What's the use of kneeling in front of me? Your brother sold the house willingly. He gave you the money willingly. You gambled willingly. No one in your family was forced to do anything. I paused, my voice growing colder. So stop kneeling. It's useless. I turned and hailed a taxi. As the car pulled away, I saw him in the rearview mirror, still kneeling on the hot pavement. His figure shrank into a small, blurry dot and disappeared into the crowd. Back in the South, my life returned to its quiet routine. Work, commute, cook, sleep. Sometimes I would video call my mom. She told me my ex-mother-in-law had come by a few times, sometimes crying, sometimes yelling, demanding that I remarry Kevin. My mom just stood at the door and said, "My daughter is living a section. Good life. Stop bothering her." My ex-mother-in-law then started cursing me, saying I was heartless and would face retribution for terminating the pregnancy. My mom just grabbed a broom and chased her away. I couldn't help but laugh when I heard that. One evening, I worked late. It was raining when I left the office. I stood under the eaves, staring at the downpour. Suddenly, an umbrella appeared in front of me. I turned. It was a young man with glasses and a plaid shirt. He smiled at me. "You're the new admin, right? We're on the same floor. I work at the company next door." I nodded. "Oh, hi." He pressed the umbrella into my hand. "Take it. My car is in the garage." Before I could react, he dashed into the rain. The next day, I went to return the umbrella. His office was at the end of the hall. I knocked, and a warm voice called out, "Come in." He was at his computer. When he saw me, he smiled. "Returning the umbrella?" "Yes, thank you." He took it. "Did you get wet last night?" "No, thanks to your umbrella." He scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "It was nothing." I smiled, and was about to leave when he called out, "By the way, what's your name?" "Sarah Collins." "I'm Daniel Chen." He hesitated for a moment. "Where do you usually eat lunch?" "The cafeteria." He frowned slightly. "The food there isn't very good." "I know a noodle place nearby, that's pretty decent. Want to go together today?" I looked into his eyes. They were very clear, very bright, with no hint of judgment or prying. I thought for a moment and nodded. "Okay." That day, we had noodles. They were delicious. We started talking, and he was easy to talk to. When the bill came, he insisted on paying. I said I would get it next time. He smiled. "Okay." And there was a next time. And another. We slowly got to know each other. He learned that I had moved from the north, that I was divorced and living alone. But he never pried. He just said, "Being alone is good. You're free." I learned that he was a local, but his parents lived in the next city over. Sometimes, we would have dinner, see a movie, or just sit in the coffee shop downstairs, each toned on our phones, in comfortable silence. One time, I asked him, "Aren't you curious why I got divorced?" He thought for a moment. "When you want to tell me, you will." I didn't say anything, and he didn't ask again. That night, I lay in bed, thinking. It had been almost half a year since the divorce, and I hadn't regretted it for a single day. One day, Daniel asked me, "Are you busy this weekend?" "No." "Want to go to the beach?" "I'll drive." I had been in this city for half a year, and hadn't been to the beach once. I nodded. "Okay." That weekend, he picked me up. The beach was beautiful. I took off my shoes and walked barefoot on the warm sand. Daniel walked beside me. We walked for a long time in silence. Then he sat down on a rock and patted the spot next to him. I sat down. He stared out at the ocean for a while before speaking. "Sarah, do you know why I like spending time with you?" I looked at him. "Because being with you is easy. You don't ask a lot of questions, you don't judge. Everything is just natural." He hesitated. "I want to ask you something." "Go ahead." "Are you planning on being alone forever?" I froze. He quickly added, "I'm not trying to pressure you. I'm just wondering if you've thought about your future." I looked out at the waves. I thought for a moment. "I don't know. For now, I just want to live well." He laughed. "That's a good plan. Living well is the most important thing." That day, we stayed until sunset. On the way back, I fell asleep in the car. When I woke up, I found his jacket draped over me. He was focused on driving. I looked at his profile and was suddenly reminded of something I had read. Someone asked an old woman when she was happiest in her life. She said, "When I was 60, and my husband peeled an orange for me." The person asked, "What about? When you were young?" The old woman smiled and said that when you're young, you don't realize it. It's only after you've lived half your life that you understand that those simple, ordinary days are the most precious happiness. I didn't know where things would go with Daniel. I didn't know if I could ever get married again. But I knew that in this moment, there was someone who would quietly cover me with his jacket so I could sleep soundly. And that was enough. 2 months later, the appeal was denied, and the original verdict stood. Kevin had to pay me back for the renovations and my share of the down payment and mortgage. A total of $380,000. When the money hit my account, I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I transferred $100,000 to my parents. My mother called immediately, refusing to take it. "You keep it. You'll need it." I smiled. "Mom, just take it. Buy Dad some good medicine, some good wine. I'm giving it to you not because I have extra, but because I want to." My mother started crying. I cried too. That evening, Daniel took me out to dinner. In the middle of the meal, he took a Laslar small box out of his pocket and placed it on the table. I stared at it. He smiled nervously. "Open it." Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a small starfish charm. Daniel looked at me, his nervousness obvious. "It's not a proposal, so don't worry." I laughed. He laughed too. "I just wanted to give you something. I found that starfish on the beach that day, and had it made into a charm. I thought that if you had it, that day wouldn't just be a memory that fades away." I looked at the tiny starfish, speechless. He scratched his head. "If you don't like it." I closed the box and held it in my hand. "I like it." His eyes lit up. "Really?" "Yes." That night, I put on the bracelet. The silver chain gleamed under the light. I looked at it for a long time, then texted my mother. "Mom, I'm okay." She replied almost instantly. "As long as you're okay." I smiled, put my phone down, and turned off the light. Outside, moonlight filtered through the leaves of the banyan tree, casting dappled shadows on the Fallon's floor. I closed my eyes. Tomorrow was a new day. Our relationship progressed quietly after that. It was gentle and unspoken. We still had dinner, saw movies, and took walks on weekends. He never said he liked me, and I never asked. Sometimes, I thought it was for the best. No pressure, no promises. But other times, I knew it wasn't right. Not because I didn't like him, but because I was afraid. Afraid of trusting someone again, only to have that trust shattered. One evening, we were walking by the river. Daniel stopped and leaned against the tanner railing. "Sarah, I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I might be transferring to Chicago. The company needs someone there." My heart gave a little tug. "When?" "Next month." I was silent for a moment, then nodded. "That's great. There are more opportunities in Chicago." He just looked at me. After a long pause, he asked, "Is there nothing else you want to say?" I didn't know what to say. Tell him not to go? But we had never defined our relationship. What right did I have? Tell him to go and wish him well? That sounded so hollow. I looked down at the river. "Daniel, you once asked me why I got divorced. I didn't tell you then because I didn't know where to start." He waited. I took a deep breath. My ex-husband sold our marital home to pay for his brother's gambling debt. $600,000 for the debt, $1 million for a new shop. I was pregnant and in pain, but he wouldn't let me see a doctor and made me work overtime to pay the mortgage he was about to sell out from under us. He sold the house without even telling me. I paused. I terminated the pregnancy and filed for divorce. So, you see? It's not that I don't want to talk about it. It's that every time I do, I feel ashamed. That I chose a man like that I endured for 3 years, only to end up with nothing. Daniel was silent for a long time. Then he said, his voice slow and clear, "You said when you were pregnant and in pain, he made you work overtime?" "Yes." "To pay the mortgage?" "Yes." "And then he sold that house to pay for his brother's gambling debt?" "Yes." He fell silent again. Then he looked at me, his voice low. "Sarah, that's not your fault. You have nothing to be ashamed of." My eyes stung. "Because you're more patient than others, because you're more understanding, because you always think of others first, what's there to be ashamed of?" The one who should be ashamed is not you. His voice grew heavy, a rare edge to it. Your ex-husband and his brother, they're the ones who should be ashamed. One enables a gambler, the other is a gambler. You paid for the renovations, you shared the mortgage, and he sold the house to fund another gamble. That's not just foolish. It's shameless. And your mother-in-law. Her son is a gambler, and she doesn't discipline him. Her other son sells his house, and she supports it. And then she has the nerve to call you a jinx? What kind of logic is that? He stopped, as if realizing he had said too much. He looked at me, embarrassed. Sorry, did I go too far? I shook my head. He ran a hand through his hair. It's just hearing what you went through, it makes me angry. After a moment, he looked at me seriously. Sarah, I haven't officially accepted the transfer to Chicago yet. I've been hesitating. Why? He paused, then finally said it. Because you're here. The river breeze felt cold against my suddenly warm cheeks. Daniel, you don't have to. I know, he interrupted gently. I know I don't have to do anything for you. But I want to. It's not because I pity you or because I want to be a hero. It's just that being with you, I feel at peace. He gave a small, self-deprecating smile. It's like I don't have to pretend. I can just be myself. He looked at me, his eyes sincere. You once said you just want to live well. I think living is the most important thing too. But who you live with, that's also important. A corner of my heart softened. I looked at him for a long time. You should go to Chicago. He looked surprised. I mean it. Go to Chicago and build your career. My job here is stable, and I don't want to change things right now. Let's both just live our lives well first. We can figure out the future later. He studied my face for a long moment, then smiled. Okay. Then I'll go. Okay. But I'll come back every weekend. I laughed. That's too much trouble. It's not, he said quickly. It's only a short, 2-hour flight. I didn't say anything more. He reached out and gently touched the starfish bracelet on my wrist. You're still wearing it. Yes. He smiled, his eyes curving in a way that melted my heart. That night, I tossed and turned, unable to sleep. And then I remembered something. Kevin had never once asked me what I was wearing on my wrist. He had probably never even noticed if I wore jewelry at all. In 3 years of marriage, he had never truly seen me. And Daniel, whom I had known for less than a year, remembered a starfish I had found on the beach. I didn't know if this was love, but I knew it was care. And it felt good to be cared for. When Daniel left for Chicago, I saw him off at the airport. He stood at the security gate, looking at me as if he wanted to say something. I'm going. Okay. Text me when you get there. I will. He hesitated. Take care of yourself, don't work too much. I know. He stood there for a few more seconds, then just smiled and turned to walk through the gate. I watched until he looked back and waved. I waved back. Then he was gone. I walked out of the terminal. The midday sun was so bright I had to squint. Just then, my phone buzzed. A text from him. Forgot to say, the starfish bracelet looks beautiful on you. I stood in the sun, staring at the words, and a smile spread across my face. And then, I started to cry. Not out of sadness, but because in that moment, I finally understood what it felt like to be truly seen by someone. I wiped my tears and texted back 2 words. Thank you. On the way to the subway, I remembered my mother asking me a few days ago, Daughter, do you think you'll ever get married again? I had said, I don't know. She had smiled. No rush. Take your time. Good things often come late. Good things often come late. I smiled to myself. Whatever the future held, right now, I had a small room of my own, a job that could support me, a starfish bracelet, and someone who was willing to take a short flight every weekend just to see me. That was more than enough. The subway arrived. I got on and took a seat by the window. The train started to move. I leaned back and closed my eyes, Kevin's words echoing in my head. Then, don't regret it. I opened my eyes and looked at my reflection in the window. Not a single regret. The train emerged from the tunnel, and sunlight flooded the car, warm and comforting. Outside the window, the city skyline passed by, old buildings giving Schefter.com Way too new, like the pages of a life, turning one by one. I looked down at the person's starfish bracelet on my wrist. The silver chain caught the light, sparkling, and Sirena. It was good. The days were long. I would take my time,